Well, hello, Glue Troopers, and welcome to colorful New York City, where I'm spending the day unexpectedly. And of course, I outsmarted myself and didn't bring a model. I need to start bringing a model, the same reason a pilot wears a parachute, and that's just in case. Last night, for those of you who are on the East Coast, you already know this, the East Coast got hit by just an incredible amount of frontal movement and weather that went all the way from New York past Florida. And we got caught up in that, wound up leaving about 3.5 hours late. As a result, we got in so late that we were not legal to fly the next morning, our Key West turn. So they took that off the schedule, just left us in the hotel. And now I'm here all day. So I'm making a video. I could be building a model, but I didn't bring one. And it's sad because Orange Tabby had just sent me that beautiful kit travel kit. It would have been a perfect opportunity to work on something. And I don't even have that much stuff in my bag, so I had room for it. So there you go. But I've got things to keep me busy. I did bring the 2 books on The Prisoner that I've been meaning to get around to reading before I do that Caterham. And of course, I brought my most recent issue of Fine Skill Modeler. And as we had noted, I am a little disappointed that the entire reader review gallery is down to 2 pages. But again, I'm sure there's things going on there. I mean, that's the entire reader gallery, 3 pictures, although they're beautiful models. So I'm sure they got things going on there. I'm actually thinking about talking to them about doing an article since I have that comp of the SD5, and somebody sent me one, and I just got another one in the original box. But I want to get 2 more because the one I got, I deliberately built it the way I built it when I was a kid. No paint or anything, just built it and put the decals on it. I want to get one to put with the four-bladed prop in Royal Air Force colors. And I want to put another one with a 2-bladed prop in the American colors to kind of show the lineage of the airplane. And I might try to rig them also, possibly, now that I've got some easy line. But I also just got that Fokker D7, which is a Revell kit, which I'm going to build. And I've got some stuff that's coming that I want to do an entire presentation about. I don't want to spoil it, but that D7 is going to fit in nicely. I'm going to be actually on the lookout for some specific models, but we'll get into that when the time comes. What I'm tentatively planning to do with my display in the house is completely rearrange it. Right now I've got like the older aircraft and larger scale, like the racing planes and some like the Gulf Hawk and the Waddell Williams up on the top shelf. And it kind of goes down. Then you got the World War II stuff and some of the airliner stuff. And then it goes down to like all World War II stuff and then all Korean War stuff. And I cleaned out the bottom shelf when I moved my Vietnam era stuff over to the other cabinet. But I have this entire plan, and with the Felix stow up on top, it dovetails very nicely. But that's something special I'm saving for later. I have to get these other things before I kind of want to do the big reveal. So there's actually going to be several episodes about that, but that might tie into me trying to put together an article about box art for Fine Skill Modeler if they're interested in running something like that. They seem to have a different editor now. I don't know how I feel about that, but I'll contact them and see. Now, like I said, I did submit one article to them a long time ago. That was more for practice. I knew the build wasn't that impressive or anything, and so I wasn't surprised when they sent everything back. The other thing is, I have a coworker who is Japanese, pure ethnic Japanese, born and raised. It's her first language, and she also used to be a voiceover specialist in Japan for like commercial ads and things. So even by the high standards of Japanese education, she has an excellent vocabulary and everything, and master the Japanese language. And I was asking her about these kit model companies, wrote the names down, and she helped me with a few of them so that I say them correctly. And some of them are pretty straightforward, but the first one I said, this is usually Americans call this Tamiya. And she said, well, most likely in Japan, given that it's a name, it would be Tamiya. So that is probably how you would hear it said in Japan. What we call Tamiya, they would probably call Tamiya. The one, then of course, I had told her about, used to call it Aoshima, but I changed it to Aoshima. And she goes, that's correct. Aoshima would be the correct way to say it. And the other one was Hasagawa, which we say Hasagawa, but she's like Hasagawa. That's correct. But the one that got me was, and this is the one that had caused a little bit of debate, was the one some of us call RE or RE. And she actually wrote it down for me phonetically and said that the way that is pronounced, even though it's ARII, is A-Ra-E. A-Ra-E. And I don't know why the two I's pronounced it. She explained it to me, but it got very complicated. And she admitted that the language is very complicated to begin with. A lot of rules, and she got into these things that were every bit as confusing to me as a lot of the stuff that my teachers would get into in English. And so it was very enlightening, but she had just an encyclopedic knowledge of her home language. But apparently, what we call RE or RE is RIE. And so I just thought that was pretty interesting. The other thing is that, just to have something to talk about for today, I was wondering if you guys have ever reached the situation, which I'm kind of getting into in a bit of a way now. Of course, buying the extra shelves helped, where, your displays are often evolutionary things if you build regularly, because sooner or later you start running out of space and you have to pick your favorite child. So I was wondering how many of you find your displays to be evolutionary, that something's got to come off the shelf to put something else on, and kind of what your protocol is, if you even have one. It may just be, oh, I just like that better. Do models get downgraded at what was a few years ago your premier build? You're like, oh, I'm so proud of that. And then as your skills got better and you started making nicer models, like, that's maybe not so great. I think I'm going to give that to the dog to chew on. So kind of wondering about that. And my displays, of course, is no shock, you're in a constant state of flux. The one thing that's really hard for me to make any changes to is the science fiction display. The wife has command and control over that because she's got some of her stuff in there, but also she's very protective of her Star Trek and Star Wars and the Godzillas and everything else. So and that right now that cabinet really looks good. So I'm not inclined to change anything. But where the airplanes are concerned, especially now I have the other cabinet, I've been making a lot of changes. I've moved all the space stuff to the other cabinet, and that's created some badly needed room. But then every once in a while, as I'll do a build that's really nice, a model will get demoted from the glass case back out to the case in the TARDIS. And there's definitely a pecking order. It's the stuff that's displayed in the house in the cabinet has met muster with my wife. It's approved. It is met the trial, and it is the premium stuff. Now, how high up or down it is not really, because the shelves usually have a motif to them. I try to follow something like the World War II shelf or the Korean, the Cold War shelf or something like that. So that's not what shelf it on is not an indicator of its status, but the fact that it's in the glass case in the house means it's considered a premier model. If it's on an open shelf, then it's either too big to go in the glass case, or in the case of the rockets, it's mounted very high up, where a glass case just isn't practical, which creates dusting problems, as we discussed earlier. Then, if something doesn't quite make the grade to go in the house, it goes in the TARDIS. There are some models that are in the bedroom, but they were more of hand selected because they just look good in the bedroom, and only a few. The mostly Cold War stuff, the resin tremulous kit, and the couple that C119 and little Strombecker wooden F84 and the F102. They just balanced out well and looked good on the shelf. But once I get into the TARDIS, there's a pecking order there too. Generally speaking, I like to keep the dioramas under glass, primarily because you cannot really dust them off. Now, the one with the Hankel 111 and the Snowbound dust isn't really a problem, but like the Knight Rider skit with Kit and Car, I definitely wanted that under glass. They usually wind up on the bottom shelf just as a matter of their footprint. don't forget if you have a diorama with a base and you put it high up, it blocks the light on the lower shelves or the ability to see them unless you have light bars or something, light strips going down, which I had talked about installing, but high command was like, maybe not. So the but in the Tarbis, generally speaking, if it's the better builds go under the glass, and then you have stuff that's just on the shelf, which is the sort of, well, fun builds and the lesser expensive kits. Nothing particularly special about them. They were fun to build, and I just wanted a place to put them. And that's where a lot of the recent builds have gone, because I'm perfectly happy with them, but there's just no place else to put them, and they kind of didn't get promoted up into the higher grades. Or in the case of something like the Thunderbolt, that Hawk P47 that I built, I already had a nicely made P47 under glass in the house on the World War II display, so it was a little redundant. Which, ironically, as we were recently talking about, one's a bubble top and one's a Razorback, but they're both D models. Then you have the kits that I didn't build, that I just somehow acquired, that or in some case ones I did real fast builds on for the camera, like the Battle of Midway thing video, that just kind of get stacked. And I'm not where I can take pictures of them, and this editing software on the camera is pretty limited, so I'd have trouble including them. And I might have some in here. If I do, I'll tack them on the end. But I was just wondering about, if you had your own particular protocol. The cars, fortunately, someone sent me a couple of little glass display cases, plexiglass wooden display cases, which helped out with a couple of the cars. The rest of those are going under glass, though, because I like the cars. And the nice thing is they don't have an enormous footprint. You can put a lot of cars in a relatively small area. Airplanes with the wings spread out, even 1/72nd scale, can gobble up a surprising amount of room. And don't forget that a 1/72nd scale model is only about a third smaller than a 1/48 scale, which is only about 17% smaller than a 1/32nd scale. And I thought, well, if I use 1/72nd scale, I get so many more models on the shelf, and you do, but you realize it's not as many as you think. Maybe on the shelf, I might be able to squeeze 5 1/32nd scale airplanes, maybe 6 1/48 scale airplanes. Well, again, no, I've squeezed. Well, again, it depends if you put them on stands. I've actually started kind of layering them, where 2 on landing gear with 1 on a stand sticking up between them, which is particularly noticeable down on the Cold War shelf, where I've got like Skyraider, Corsair, F-86, or excuse me, MiG-15 and F-84 on wheels. In between them are the Panther on a stick, and the F-86 on a stick, and the P-80 or F-80 on a stick, that kind of thing. So it's kind of like staggering them. It's like the old joke about some of these fly-ins when things get really tight. It's a Mooney, Cessna, Bonanza, Cessna, Piper, Cessna, because he can stick the low wing underneath the high wing airplanes. Or why you see a lot of hangars are set up as T hangars are back to back, where the tail, so the airplane's going like a zipper. Well, anyway, that's about all I got for this. It was just something a little impromptu that I thought I would do, since I'm sitting here in the hotel room. I thought about going over some of the programs that I use when I'm flying. I know some people have some curiosity about stuff we use in aviation, because pilots used to carry those big square bags with all the charts and everything in them. Now it's all on an iPad, but I realize some of that's proprietary software. I probably shouldn't be putting that out over the airwaves. It's all commercial stuff, but don't want to run afoul of the powers that be. So anyway, I'm sitting here in right outside of JFK Airport, and here I am. And I'm out dark 30 tomorrow morning, so I will be, ironically, tomorrow night, we overnight by LaGuardia. So this is a New York Central trip, a centric trip. I'd taken it because I wanted to do the Key West turn, and that's the one that got dropped. But, oh well, so that's where we're at, guys. Well, I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. And now we have some beautiful weather, at least. You guys take care and muddle on.